Power BI, learning DAX. Today we're going to take a look at some of the basics of DAX, which stands for Data Analysis Expression. It is a way of making formulas that help you answer your business questions. We're going to work with a small model which has a couple of relationships, and then we're going to ask business questions, and then we're going to find the answers to them by writing some DAX formulas. The best way to learn DAX is to always be thinking about what types of business questions, and it doesn't matter if you have an e-commerce business, if you're doing marketing data, if you're using sales data. We're going to use some basic sales data from some orders, and then we're going to ask some questions, and then we're going to find the answers using things like count rows. We're going to do a sum. We're going to learn the basics of DAX and kind of the thought process. Once you kind of learn the different syntax of DAX and how to ask questions and how to answer those questions, that is how you're going to learn DAX. Then you can actually solve answers to DAX and get more advanced once you know some of the basics. It's an intro to DAX, solving business questions by asking questions and then answering them with DAX in Power BI. Back in Power BI, today we're going to show you the basics of DAX and understanding what are some of the answers to your questions, your business questions that you're trying to get from your data model. Now remember, there's 5 steps in the data modeling process. You start off with importing your data, then you start to clean your data, then you work on your DAX functions and your model, and then you start to work on your visualizations and build out your report. So this time around, we are already in the model stage. We already have a model. We have 3 tables. We have an orders table. We have a shippers table, and we have a customers table. So those are the 3 tables. We have a one-to-many relationship, and now as a data analyst, we want to learn DAX, but the best way to learn DAX is to ask business questions and then solve for it by using DAX. Now, DAX stands for Data Analyst Expression, and it is another way that you can build formulas. It started off in Excel, but the same DAX functions are also part of Power BI. So the first business question we have is how many orders did we ship? And to answer that question, we're going to go to the orders table. We're going to build a new measure, and the name of the measure, the names of your measures should always be explanatory. So we want number of orders, and it equals, we're going to hit Shift Enter, and for this one, we want to count the number of rows. So every order is in its own row on this table. So we're going to use count rows, and the IntelliSense brings up the options just by typing in count, and count rows is going to come up, and now it's just asking for a table, and the name of the table is orders. So we're going to start typing in ORD, and our orders table comes up. And all we need to do now is close that out. And now we have the measure name number of orders. Now remember, measures cannot be seen. They are not row context. They are not actually put into a physical hard table. They are only used when you bring them into a visual. So we're going to create a table, and we're going to make this big so that you can see the number of orders. And we have 809 orders in this table. So that answers the question, the number of orders. So now we have another table inside this orders table. We have, if you go to the data view, we have freight. Every row, every time we shipped out an order, we had to spend money on shipping. So now the question is, somebody is asking, how much did it cost us to send all of these orders? So the measure would be called freight cost. And we're going to use a sum And the sum is asking for the column name. And under the orders, we have the freight. So we close out the right parenthesis. And now we have a measure. This little calculator icon is called freight cost. We bring that into our table, and we know that we spent $63,000, $955.02 on freight. And to format that, we can go to the dollar sign and go English United States. So now we spent $63,955 on freight. Now we have a customer table, and every customer is identified with a customer ID. So now what we want to do is we want to know how many customers we have. So we're going to create a new measure called number of customers. And this is going to be a count. And we're going to count the number of customer IDs. We could close out the right parentheses. And in our database, if we bring over the number of customers, we have 91 customers. So that is what we start to do. We start to ask questions, and then we build up measures to answer those questions. So now if you go to the orders table, we see that we have a column called shipping date, and we have a column called order date. So now we want to know how long does it take to ship out the order from the order date. So we can create a new column, and this is going to be called days until shipping. And the formula is going to be the ship date, the order's ship date, and that's going to be minus the order date. So we go to the order, and we have the order date. And then we hit enter, and it comes up as a date time. But to see that in a whole number, we go to the data type, and we make this a whole number. So we're going to change the data type. And now we see that it was ordered on July 12th, and ordered on July 8th, shipped on July 12th. That means it took 4 days to ship that out. So the shortest amount of shipping time, if we want to sort this, is 1 shipping day, and all the way to the bottom, it took 37 days to ship it out. So we want to see the average number of days until shipping. So now we go to the orders table. We're going to create a new measure, and this one's going to be called average days until shipping. And this is going to be the average of a column, and the column is days until shipping. So now we're going to average that out. And if we go back to our report view and bring in the average days until shipping, we can see that it took 8.49 days. And we can ask our logistics team, do we want to try to lower that? Do we think we can do better? So these are some of the business questions, and you can very quickly build up a bunch of measures and start to analyze that data out. So if we want to see the number of customers, you can see the number average days until order, you can build out more columns. So we started out with just a few columns, but now we've added on an additional column. We have the days until shipping. And if we want to see how much we spent on freight per customer, we could build out another table, and we could bring in the customer ID, and let's look at the contact name. And now we can bring in the freight cost, and we can see that if we sort it, we spent $6,683 shipping to the contact name Jose Pavarotti. So this is how you start to build out your measures, and this is how you start to learn DAX. And we used Countrows, sum, count, and average in this DAX tutorial. But we now have the answers to those questions on the business questions that people are going to be asking us as an analyst. So that's the best way to learn DAX. Ask questions and then start to figure out the answers to those questions by building your DAX measures. That is an intro to learning DAX and building out DAX measures in Power BI.